Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to our new series, Those in the Shade of Allah's Throne. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace and blessings be on each and every one of you. In this series that we're beginning, we will be looking at a particular statement of the Prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, in which he has described 7 groups of people who would be shaded on the Day of Judgment, shaded from the trials and from the fears of that day. These 7 groups are recorded in a particular hadith or statement of the Prophet ﷺ, which was narrated from Abu Hurairah, in which he quotes the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as saying,
عن أبي هريرة عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال: 7 يظلهم الله تعالى في ظله يوم لا ظل إلا ظله، إمام عادل، وشاب نشأ في عبادة الله، ورجل قلبه معلق بالمساجد، ورجلان تحابا في الله اجتمعا عليه وتفرقا عليه، ورجل دعته امرأة ذات منصب وجمال فقال: إني أخاف الله، ورجل تصدق بصدقة فأخفاها حتى لا تعلم شماله ما تنفق يمينه، ورجل ذكر الله خاليا ففاضت عيناه.
Abu Hurairah related from the Prophet ﷺ that he said, 7 will be shaded by Allah Almighty on a day when there will be no other shade besides His shade. A just ruler, a youth who grows up worshipping Allah, a man whose heart is attached to the mosques, 2 men who love each other for the sake of Allah. They meet on the basis of it and separate on the basis of it. A man who is invited by a woman of high position and beauty, and he replies, "Indeed, I fear Allah." A man who gives charity and hides it so much so that his left hand is unaware of what his right hand gave. And a man who remembers Allah in private, and his eyes become filled with tears. This statement of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has been narrated by so many of his companions and those who came after him that scholars like Imam al-Dhahabi said that the narrations concerning the shade of the throne have reached the level of tawatur. Tawatur meaning that there are so many people who have narrated this hadith that there is absolutely no chance that there could be any error in it. It becomes like a verse from the Quran. The Quran has been narrated by large numbers on all levels of its narration. So this hadith falls under a similar category in terms of its authenticity. And one of the great scholars of the past, Abdullah ibn Abdul Barr, had said, "This is the best and most comprehensive hadith narrated on the meritorious deeds and those who do them, insha'Allah. It is sufficient for you as honor, because the knowledge encompasses the fact that everyone who will be in Allah's shade on the day of resurrection will not be affected by the terror of the situation." So this is a very comprehensive hadith which addresses certain categories of deeds, all of which are interlinked, that a Muslim who truly fears Allah and the judgment to come will focus on and try to acquire these characteristics. Because what we can see, as is the norm of the Prophet Muhammad, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, in explaining things, he oftentimes expresses very deep and extensive meanings in very simple words. This he referred to as Jawami' al-Kalim. This is one of the things which were granted to him, that he could express in very simple and short words huge, vast meanings. And what you find is that all of these 7 categories, the fact that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has linked them all, has mentioned them all together in one hadith, we find when we look at them more closely that in fact they are all interrelated. All of them share common characteristics. First and foremost, when we look at the issue of love and fear of Allah, we find this interwoven into all of the various characteristics. Whether it is with regards to the ruler, if he does not love and fear Allah, then how is he going to be just? Similarly, the young man who grows up worshipping Allah, is not diverted by the many distractions of this life, how can he do this without loving and fearing Allah? Also, the one whose heart is attached to the masjid, to the mosques, such a person can only have this strong attachment, this strong desire to be in the mosque if he in fact loves and fears Allah. Likewise, that individual who meets others and develops a friendship only for the sake of Allah, where he or she only meet and only separate over what Allah has commanded, this can only take place where there is love and fear of Allah. Otherwise, people meet and separate for all other purposes, for the things of this world. You know, that they will break up their friendships over the smallest things. Also, that individual who is called by a woman of high position and wealth and beauty, when she calls him, invites him to corruption, for him to be able to say, no, I fear Allah, he must fear Allah. That's what he said, I fear Allah. And likewise, the individual who gives charity and does it in such a way that no one knows. And the fact that his left hand doesn't know what his right hand is doing is only a symbolic way of saying that it is extremely hidden. For him to do that, or for her to do that, individual woman to do that, they must fear Allah. They must fear Allah. The consequence for doing deeds openly, wherein one seeks the praise and admiration of others, it means their deeds will be destroyed. One who fears that from Allah will try to hide his or her charity. Furthermore, the individual who remembers Allah when he is all alone, then such a person has to fear Allah and love Allah for their eyes to become filled with tears. They fear Allah from the wrong that they have done, and they love Allah. Their desire to want to meet Allah, to see Allah, this draws them to that state where their eyes become filled with tears. Secondly, we can see shared in all of these categories is a consciousness of Allah. Because in fact, of course, the love of Allah and fear of Allah, this is a product of consciousness. One has to be conscious of Allah for this to take place. So all of these categories share this concept of consciousness of Allah. That individual who is the ruler, if he is not aware of Allah in his or her in his actions, then how, on what is going to stop him from being unjust? When he considers doing injustice, it is his awareness of Allah, his consciousness of Allah, which holds him back, which stops him. Because otherwise, when a person is in that position,